you're ever coming back. A lot of people just never make it back. Can you measure how dedicated they are by their ability to bounce back? I'm feeling like I hate this part. We're going to start this podcast episode today with me telling you a little story. It's like story time. Okay. But it's not even that fascinating of a story, but there's a good ending. Okay. There's a good lesson to be learned here. And it's going to feel like I'm on a little bit of a rabbit trail, but those of you with really creative brains, I think you can pace with me. Okay. You can track with me. All right. So here's the story that I want to tell you. So the other day, I was on the treadmill, and we got a treadmill this winter. If you listen to podcast episode 356, which was just a couple of weeks ago, you'll know exactly why I'm back to exercising. So go listen to that next if you want. But anyhow, so I was on the treadmill doing a little joggy jog. Okay. One of my goals for 2023, if you listen to the podcast Jason and I did right at the beginning of the year in January, Jason and I went out and we made a bunch of like goals together for this year based on like in the family category, fitness category, finance category, friendship category, and faith category. Those are the five pillars. And so one of my goals was that I wanted to get back to jogging. Now, listen, that may sound like a ridiculous thing, but here's what I want you to know that nobody ever told me. Okay. Some of you moms who have children, that are like of school age, you will totally understand the example I'm about to give you. So did you ever when your kids are starting to grow up, did you ever have this realization one day, like, oh my gosh, I don't know when was the last time I held my toddler? Because you don't know it's the last time when you're in the last time. Right. And so I remember one day having just this thought, I think it was with Easton actually, thinking, I'll never probably hold him again because I can't remember when the last time I held him was. Just all of a sudden they're too big for that, right? And if you think about do any of you remember the last time you were physically able to do a cartwheel, or the last time you did one? I can remember I put my back out, promptly had to go to the chiropractor. So I'm not doing that again. But the same thing has happened to me with different things just as I get a little bit older. So I'm getting ready to turn 52. And I don't know when the last time I was able to run and that I went out and ran a couple of miles is. I think it was probably 3-ish years ago was my guess. But I had this realization at the beginning of the year that I don't like that. Because physically, I should be able to still run at 51. I don't like that I can't remember when the last time I ran was, and I want to know that I can still run if I want to. And so hence, we got a treadmill over the winter. Okay. So I'm on the treadmill last week and I'm doing some interval training, which means I'm walking for 90 seconds and then I'm running for 90 seconds. I'm walking for 90 seconds and I'm running for 90 seconds. 5 sets of those. I'm feeling froggy. I'm feeling like I'm doing something. I'm feeling kind of good. And, I'm on the treadmill and I've got, this is how I treadmill, by the way. I have my phone on, the little holder thingy majig. And then I have inevitably the news up behind me so that I can watch straight ahead. And I have the volume turned way down. And on my phone, I usually am listening to Voxers as I run. I don't know why. It's just a good use of my time. And a lot of the times I'm listening to the Voxers from our mastermind lady. So I'm on there and I'm running. And, when you run for 90 seconds, and we're going to call it sprintish. Okay. I mean, when you've gained a few LBS and you are 51, I don't know that I was, I'm not sprinting like I was at 30. Okay. But it was sprinterish. So what happens is, when you do a little sprinting like that, then you get done and you start walking and I'm winded and I'm gasping for breath and, trying to regain my breathing composure. And one thing I know after having run 2 half marathons, and doing 10 triathlons, that was 10 triathlons in my 40s, is that, your breathing is so critical when you're running, when you're triathloning, all of the things, because if your breathing gets out of control, a lot of times you can end up almost in a little bit of a panic attack, especially in a triathlon if you're in the water. Ask me how I know, because I've had 10 triathlons and I've almost had a panic attack on every single one of them. So anyhow, so it's really important to not let your breathing get completely out of control, not just when you're doing a swim in the triathlon, but even when you're running. And so I was always taught that when you're running, you need to inhale through your nose and exhale through your mouth. I used to run years and years ago with an old neighbor of ours, and their kids were, like state champions in running and things. And he really taught me like how to breathe well when running. So inhale through your nose, exhale through your mouth, right? He also trained me that when my breathing, when I was running, would become super labored and out of control, that I would really need to work hard to regain control of my breathing quickly. And so just, trying to take deeper breaths when the propensity of your body is to want to go in and out really, really quickly, right? And so, so I'm on the treadmill and I'm doing my sprints, and I'm thinking of the gentleman that used to, run with me and teach me how to run. And I'm thinking, okay, I need to really work on my breathing, because one of the things that your breathing is an indicator of when you're working out and when you're running is the quicker your breathing can get back to a normalish state, like the quicker you can recover from the gasping and the, breathing in too hard and out too quickly and things, the quicker you can do that to go back to more of a normal state is kind of an indicator of how in shape you are. And so like because if you can get your body to come back to, kind of a neutral state when you go back to walking really quickly, that's a good indicator that you are halfway in shape. This is always at least what I was trained to believe. So if you know anything any different, just go with that. But so I'm working on my sprints and I'm working on my running, and I'm really working on making sure that I recover my breathing quickly. And, and it wasn't as quick as what I would hope, but it was also quicker than what I thought it'd be. So that was pretty good. So I'm thinking about that. I'm on the treadmill and I'm thinking about, recovering my breathing, and that's an indicator of how fit you are. And then that led me to another thought. Okay. So stay with me on the rabbit trail here. Stay with me. It's a good rabbit trail. Okay, so then this made me think, this is a leap. This made me think back to when I used to be a pack-a-day smoker. Now I know some of you are having just like a mental whiplash, because I just told you how I did 2 half marathons and 10 triathlons in my 40s. And now I'm telling you about how I used to be a pack-a-day smoker. And the truth is, Easton Allwood is the producer of this podcast onto our YouTube channel. And Easton is going to be hearing this story for the very first time. Not that I've hid my smoking ever from my children, but here's some details. Okay. So I actually started smoking the year that I graduated back in 1989. And, back in 1989, a lot more people were smoking, of course, than what we're today. I don't think there was all of the knowledge and the evidence and all of those things about how awful smoking was for you yet. So, and I smoked for 12 years. I smoked for 12 years. And here's what I want you to know. I was not a casual smoker. I was a pack-a-day smoker. Like I went from 0 to a pack-a-day in a nanosecond. I'm kind of a go big or go home kind of girl. So I went kind of all in on the smoking, right? So, and part of that I think is I was raised in a household where both of my parents smoked. Lots of grace to them, first of all. Neither of them smoke anymore. But they smoked like with the windows up in the car. Do you know what I mean? Any of you had parents that smoked with the windows up? So I was used to cigarette smoke. My lungs were already used to it. So it wasn't a huge leap for me. So several times I tried to quit smoking when I was in my 20s. And it was actually Jason and I, the first time we ever prayed together out loud. That first time we ever prayed together out loud, we were in our late 20s. I'll never forget this. We went to bed one night and I'm like, we should pray. And he's like, okay. And I'm like, no, pray together. And he's like, you mean out loud? And I'm like, yeah, I know this is weird. Let's try this. and that's how that happened. So I actually remember praying, Lord, give us a reason other than cancer to quit smoking, because at that point I'd gotten him hooked on smoking as well. And just a few weeks after that, we were pregnant with Noah Allwood. And so that's when I quit. But here's how this relates to this story. Back when I was trying to quit several times in my 20s, I can remember talking to doctors. I can remember talking to other friends. I can remember, reading articles. But one thing that I kind of heard over and over again is that you could tell how addicted to smoking that you were by how long you could go in the morning without a cigarette. And so when I would think of myself, I would think, wow, I am really addicted, because I would have a cigarette, you guys, and this is just so embarrassing to admit to you, but it's going to help somebody. It's going to set you free. I would have a cigarette often before I got out of bed in the morning. I would roll over on my nightstand. I would roll over in my waterbed. Who remembers their waterbeds? And light up a cigarette before I even got out of bed. And, I can just remember people saying how addicted you are depends on how long you can go without nicotine every morning. If you have to have it immediately, then that shows that you're really highly addicted. That's an embarrassing story to tell, by the way. Embarrassing, but praise God, quit when I got pregnant with Noah. I have never had a cigarette since because I know me well enough to know that if I have one, I'll have a carton. So there's that. Okay. So I'm on the treadmill and I'm thinking back to my days of smoking, and I'm thinking back to, you can tell how fit you are by how quickly your breathing recovers after major exertion. You can tell how addicted to cigarettes you are by how long you go without a cigarette. And then the Lord literally dropped something in my spirit, you guys, because my next thought in my squirrel brain was, I wonder if you can measure how dedicated or how successful an entrepreneur will be by something also. Can you measure how dedicated they are by their ability to bounce back from a failure? Can you measure how successful an entrepreneur is going to be by their ability to get back up after they failed? That was my immediate thought. And because, I'm not smart enough to come up with these things on my own, I know that was from the Holy Spirit. It was interesting to me because as I sat there and I'm doing more sprints and I'm walking 90 seconds and I'm running for 90 seconds, I just kept thinking about this. And I was thinking especially about all the women in my mastermind. And I was thinking about a couple of ladies who've struggled recently with launches. And by the way, I'm recording this in the month of May. May is a difficult month to launch. Can I just say that? It's a difficult month to launch because people are doing, end of the year things at their kids' school. They are doing graduations. They're getting ready to have kids home and they're preparing for that. There's just a lot that happens in the month of May. There's Mother's Day and people are scheduling family vacations and all the things. So May is a hard time to launch. But I was thinking of a couple of ladies who have not had a great launch in May. And I was thinking about one of them who she didn't have anybody sign up for the program that she was launching. But in our conversation together, she's like, and you know what? That's okay because I learned so much. And I was so proud of her because I was thinking can you bomb a launch and come right back? Can you get a crappy DM from a complete stranger on your Instagram about whatever it is you're offering and bounce right back from that? Can you lose, a really valuable, intricate team member, somebody that you have hired, and still rebound from that? And I was just pondering, the different people I know who have had hard launches, and that some of them have been like, well, I guess that this is a sign that I'm supposed to quit. And others have been like, you know what? We're just going to chalk this up as a learning experience. And then I was thinking just about how tied we sometimes get to our business results. And what do we make our results mean is the most important thing that I was thinking. We're so tied to the results we get from our launch or what have you, the dollars that we made last year, et cetera. We're so tied to those results because we make the results mean something. And so often we are making the results mean something about our own worth as a human being. And so we spend a lot of time licking our wounds, and sometimes we just never come back from that. So what I was thinking as I was still doing, my interval training is that it would be so helpful as entrepreneurs if all of us, including me at times, because it's still tempting for me to make the results mean something about me, but we have to reframe how we look at failure and what we're making a failure in our business mean. The truth of the matter is business numbers are just data. They're literally just data. How many people are following you on Facebook is not necessarily an indicator of how smart you are, how talented you are, the product that you're offering. It's literally just data. Business numbers, they're just that. They're just data that we're able to if we're able to look at them in a really neutral way, almost from like looking above and looking down on the numbers, it's so much healthier for us as entrepreneurs. So you failed a launch, whatever failure looks like. So no one signed up. Maybe you didn't sell as many courses as what you wanted to. Maybe your book just launched. You didn't sell as many books as you wanted to. How could we just look at that as data and separate you from your results? Separating you from your business, friends, it's just critical. It's just critical because anytime you are trying new things, you are apt to probably have a failure or something that doesn't work exactly like you'd like for it to the first time you do it. Anytime you're putting yourself out there, there's definitely a possibility that something's going to go sideways and it could equal a failure. I say that in air quotes. I think that it's not a matter of if you have something that fails in business, but when you have something that fails in business. I can remember it was probably 7 or 8 years ago when I had a launch online. And 7 or 8 years ago is really when I was transitioning, from trying to get out of the painting company and into coaching. And I was kind of just dabbling, right? And not dabbling's not a good word, because I wasn't playing with this online space. I was going all in. It wasn't that. But what I was doing was I was throwing spaghetti against a wall, trying to figure out what's going to stick. I was trying to see, do people want a course from me? Do they want a group from me? What do I want to deliver as, the business owner? Because sometimes we're so concerned about what our clients want, we forget to temper that with, and what's going to work best for me and my family and my goals. So I'm trying different things. I had launched my Inner Circle, which is a monthly, $47 then at the time, $47 group. And so I decided to launch a 6-week mentorship program. And yes, I called it a mentorship program. And it was interesting because I was working in a mastermind then with a business coach. And I could remember telling her the name of my mentorship. And she's like, oh, Jen, no. So-and-so, and it's a big business person's name that you would totally recognize, but I didn't know her at the time, has a program with that exact name. If you launch it with that, you will get a cease and desist from her attorney. And I'm like, oh gosh. Okay. Didn't know. So, had to do a quick pivot on the name, totally call it something else. That was fine. But I come out with a webinar, and I'm going to take them from the webinar to my 6-week mentorship program. And I can remember sitting at my PC, and I can remember doing the webinar, I think probably on GoToWebinar, because I don't think Zoom was even a thing. And I can remember getting to the part where you have to kind of shift from delivering content to then making your offer. So I'm making my offer for my 6-week mentorship program, and I'm just feeling like all in my feelings. I'm feeling awkward. I'm feeling like this. I hate this part. I hate it when I have to shift from the serving to the selling. And by the way, I teach my people how to do that different, but I can remember doing that launch, making the pivot, offering my 6-week mentorship program, getting done with that webinar, and not one person signed up. Not one person signed up, not one, not even a half a person, nobody, zero. And so I can remember feeling, all up in my feelings about it, but then also just trying to be as neutral as I could about figuring out, okay, well, what happened here? Maybe it was the way that I described it that wasn't good. Maybe I didn't give enough value in the webinar. Maybe the webinar wasn't exactly what people needed to then go into the mentorship. I can remember trying to figure out what was it and working with my coach to do that, and trying to just not take it personally. And then trying to make sure I came back from that super quickly, because failure just means you're trying something. And you know what? High stinking 5 to you for trying something. Do you know how many people are not trying something? Do you know how many people are wishing that they had the guts to try launching something out into the world? Do you know how many people wish they had the guts to quit their 9-to-5 and try to get in the online space? So first of all, high five to all of you who are just trying stuff. But failure is going to be a part of every business. But what I would love for you to do is try to reframe how you think about failure. The reframe is that failure is just data. The reframe is that now you know what doesn't work. The reframe is now figuring out why and what happened. Because if you can look at that failure from a very neutral place, and if you can just look at it as data, if you can almost again, you're hovering above it and looking down on what you just did, and try to figure out, why was it a failure? Maybe you need more people following you on social media. Maybe you need more people on your email list. Maybe no one opened your emails, or not enough people opened your emails. If that's you, by the way, hang tight here till the end. I have a freebie for you. Maybe you didn't explain your offer well enough. Maybe not enough people hit your sales page. Maybe your sales page is awful. And so trying to figure out, and I've had awful sales pages before, so throw no shade there. Okay. So if you can try to figure out and ponder and be thoughtful about what actually happened, it's so beneficial to getting right back up. Give yourself a day. This is what I like to tell people. Give yourself a day to lick your wounds, to feel awful, to, want to kick rocks or what have you. Give yourself a day. to, get all your feelings out about it. But don't give yourself a week. Don't give yourself a month, because those things turn into a year before you're ever coming back. And a lot of people just never make it back. Give yourself a day to get all up in your feelings, and then let's get back to it. How quickly you get right back at it, I think, is a sign of your personal dedication. How quickly you get right back at it, I think, is a sign of how driven you are to make this thing work. How quickly you get right back at it, I think, is a sign of how committed you are to making this something that you're not just toying with, you're not just playing with, but you're actually really serious about. How quickly you get right back at it, I think, sometimes is an indicator of how obedient you are to the call of God on your life. Because the Lord never says, like, this is what I want you to do. Jen, I want you to coach women in the online space. And then I have a failed launch. And he's like, you know what? You're right. You probably shouldn't do that. Like, that's not what the Lord's doing, right? In fact, the Bible says, for the righteous falls 7 times and rises again. That's what the Bible says. So I want you to really consider to stop making the failure about you, and to stop making the failure about the thing that you're offering. I want you to stop internalizing the results, and instead just study your numbers. Instead, try to be curious about what happened and why it didn't go well. What do you need to shift? What do you need to look at differently? What maybe hadn't you considered before? Be almost curious about it. Be neutral about the results that you got, and then just get right back at it. Just like how fast your breathing recovers is an indicator of how fit you are. Just like how quickly you have to have a cigarette in the morning is an indicator of how addicted you are. I believe getting right back at it is a sign of how dedicated you are, and possibly how successful you're going to be. So I hope that was really helpful for someone today. As I said earlier in the podcast, if you are somebody that struggles with people opening your emails, and this is often what I see, by the way, in my coaching, people will send emails, but they don't have a great open rate. And you need to have your open rate at least at 25%. If you can get more into the 30 and 40%, we're going to call that a win. Okay. So I have a freebie for you. It's at jenniferallwood.com/subject. And it's my top email subject lines that actually convert. My top 50 email subject lines that people actually open that have worked really well for us with me being online, for the last 10 years in this space. So that's my gift to you, jenniferallwood.com/subject. I hope that it's helpful. Get right back at it, my friends. I'm rooting for you. Bye-bye. Dun, 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 dun. I'm done.